Okay, we got sneezing next door. Not loud. We've got liftoff people. We're in a fucking hell. We're in a different place now. We're there. We made it. Basically, I'll just read all the things first, and then I'll put my current thoughts onto it afterwards. The first thing I'm noticing whilst watching everything at normal speed is that everyone sounds a lot stupider. Not funny stupid, but just more dumb. Anyway. I guess hearing people talking fast alters your perception of how smart they are, which doesn't sound that outlandish. If people were able to converse perfectly at twice their normal speed, it probably would mean they were smarter. In fact, I've been told on many occasions that I talk very fast. Maybe I'm some kind of super ultra mega genius or something. Perhaps this was another factor of my inability to enjoy things. Not that that's in the past yet or anything, obviously. But perhaps my reward system for feeling intellectually superior to people, which I've explicitly acknowledged before in these ramblings, was being significantly understimulated because I was perceiving everyone to be smarter than me, and also smarter than they actually are, because they were talking fast. It's interesting though, because my initial reason for listening to things at double speed was because I wanted to be able to learn. I wanted to be able to learn things twice as fast and learn to think twice as fast. Obviously, this isn't really possible because neurons fire at a limited speed. But as a kid, I always wondered if the voice in your head just talked faster, then could you think faster? And then I guess another problem this might have caused was that the fact that twice speed became the new norm. But I wasn't as competent at comprehending as I was at normal speed. The feeling is that, well, now I'm behind the norm, even though you're not. Maybe it's similar to that theory about what kind of work you're supposed to look for. You're meant to find something that is a challenge, but not so difficult that it makes you feel inadequate, but also not too easy that you feel it's below you and you're wasting away. This logic suggests that maybe I should try 1.5 speed or something, but I think I'd rather just stick with normal, maybe because that's a challenge for me, or maybe because I like feeling superior. Or maybe I should have applied the logic of progressive overload and worked my way up to 2 times speed. But no, I'm going to stick to normal and sticking with it unless it makes... Oh, no. But no, I'm going back to normal and sticking with it, unless it makes no difference, in which case, fuck it. Fuck it all to hell. But, well, actually, I'll just read them again. Yeah, I wanted to try poker, airsoft and football. Give those a go again. I actually want to do them. This is exciting. Craziness. Now, this is pretty funky, but I'm feeling fixed. I mean, it's entirely possible that this is just a momentary upswing. It wouldn't be the first, but this feels different, and it was prompted in the way that I felt it needed to be, for it to be what I needed it to be. My problem was always that I felt I couldn't enjoy anything. So whether there was an obstacle preventing me from doing it, well, an obstacle preventing me from enjoying things was always a possibility. And I thought it was born out of philosophy. But if it was, if it was the fact that I would... And I thought it was born out of philosophy, but if it was the fact that I was feeling disengaged or inferior intellectually or whatever, but that the source was the fact that I'd spent all day every day watching things at double speed, well then it was something that once realised could be immediately rectified without having to work at something over time. I always felt that it was something that one idea one realisation would fix. Now I feel that feeling that makes life okay. Right this instant, I'd be okay with a mediocre job that I just did to earn money so that I could do whatever I want to do. And more importantly, I want to do things. I want to play poker again, which is odd because I never liked it that much. I want to try airsoft. I want to give stand-up a go. I want to move to London. I want to go out. I want to play football, even though I know it's absolutely meaningless. I'm writing this now, obviously, in the moment. Whether I feel this way the day after, which is now, by the way, whether I feel this way the day after, when I'm reading it, remains to be seen. I'll let you answer that one, Ollie. Oh, that's me. Thanks, Ollie. But I guess this whole experience hasn't taught me nothing. I believe I've made some philosophical realisations. Right now, I couldn't pity anyone more than people who have to go through what I did, and don't doubt there are people dealing with infinitely worse scenarios. I only had to deal with not being able to experience any feelings. Some people will presumably be stuck feeling exclusively terrible, both physical and emotional pain. It sounds so stupid to believe that all this time, all of these ramblings and complaining could possibly be caused by such a seemingly insignificant conscious decision I made. It feels unbelievable, but somehow I do believe it, and I'm glad I do. Not that wanting something to be true is a good reason to believe it is, but now, right now, as absurd as it sounds and feels, I actually believe it. Whether this lasts, I guess I'll know soon enough. More promising occurrences now. For the first time in a long while, I watched something with the family and actually laughed at the funny parts. Not just laughed at the bits I knew other people would laugh at to keep up appearances, but actually felt it and found it funny. And would you believe that it was actually one of the new Simpsons episodes? it is possible that it actually was just a good episode. Or maybe it was the first thing that had anything that could be considered funny that I've watched since feeling right again. It was the one about Bart playing dodgeball against 5th graders and then finding out he used to be friends with one of them because they both have scars on their hands in the shape of a cocktail sword. I tell you, this feeling good business feels pretty damn good. I also guessed that the scar was going to be a branding of a cocktail stick sword, which made me feel good, because I like being able to guess things. I am fully open to the possibility that I just needed to believe that something had changed that allowed me to feel things again, when in reality nothing has changed at all, apart from the fact that I believe it has. However, I feel slightly assured that this isn't the case, because 1, my understanding that this could be the case doesn't seem to affect my ability to believe it, and 2, because the thing which I believe to be the source is so unbelievable, I can't see myself ever believing it to be the source unless it really is. If I was tricking myself, I could think of infinitely more reasonable sounding reasons than the one that I believe to be true, and I kind of do that in a moment anyway. I guess the moral of this story is, don't fix it if it ain't broke, or perhaps don't mess with the formula. So pretty much the same thing. Only problem is, it's hard to know when you are messing with the formula. If I actually had to describe what feels different, I guess it would be, well, for starters, I can feel anything at all, but also I want to do things, even the smallest thing. I want to click on a YouTube video. I want to watch TV with my family. Before I do something, there's an expectation that it will make me feel a certain way, that I'll get some kind of return for doing something, a reward, if you will. I guess some people might understand if I put it like this. I feel like things are actually happening to me rather than I'm just kind of there observing things happening. Although I guess that's what the fucking Buddhists are looking for. I don't know. If that is what they're looking for, I don't think they know what they want. Although I'm not entirely sure that does describe it accurately, but it's not far off. It's not that there's a reason for doing things, but that there can be a reason for doing anything at all. And it just happens that I feel the reason to do just about it. And it just happens that I feel reason to do just about anything, because everything will make me feel a certain way. And it's not as if I didn't understand this before. I just couldn't convert it into actual feelings, and now I can. Only problem is that now I'm vulnerable to my greatest fear. I think I've mentioned it before. One of my greatest fears. Hang on. I mentioned it before. One of my greatest fears. Whatever. At least one of my greatest fears, at least of the irrational ones, is that I develop some kind of superpower only to lose it. Of course, I'm referring to my ability to feel emotions as a superpower. Hopefully this fear is ill-founded. Another reason I think the idea that life is a gift and all children should be grateful to their parents no matter what is bullshit, is that if that were the case, we should be making as many babies as would be physically possible, and then just be chucking them into the desert or a canyon or something to fend for themselves. Clearly this wouldn't be a gift, and I don't think any creature born under such circumstances would be expected to be grateful to or have respect for their parents. So there needs to be some kind of mutual love, I guess. Okay, if it turns out that I'm indeed fixed now, and that my hunch about why I felt that way for so long is right, or at least achieve the same purpose as if it were right, then I don't think there could possibly be a more convincing way of making it seem like I never really had a problem in the first place. It makes it very hard to believe that I truly wanted to be dead if the thing that stopped this obsession of 2 years was me starting to watch YouTube videos at the normal speed again. Something that I've noticed again today since the apparent revelation is that my pupils are doing the thing they used to do. They are unnaturally dilated in a well-lit environment. I've had many theories about why this used to happen, especially in social situations, and people have pointed it out to me on multiple occasions. One of my theories was that pupil dilation happens during the fight or flight response. Well, that's not my theory, but I know that to be the case apparently. To make you more alert, but my theory is that it relates to me in this way, to make you more alert and able to pick up on more visual information. So I thought I might just be naturally more alert, which I always liked the sound of, because I never felt anxious, so I would presumably be getting the benefits of being super aware, but not the stress associated with it. Another theory was that I was just able to handle more information coming in at any one time, so my eyes dilated to allow me to download more visual information in the form of light than most people, which also made me feel superior, which I liked. But it's back now. I've never noticed it since I've been feeling the way I was, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but for the first time in almost 2 years I've noticed it again. I'd just like to preface the following statement by saying, this is where it takes a different route here. I'd just like to preface the following statement by saying it's going to seem for a very long time like I'm digging myself a hole, deeper and deeper and deeper still, one that I have no hope of getting out of. But all I ask is that you listen to everything said in full and don't ignore the context of the remarks. This may be, on the surface, one of the most inflammatory remarks I've made for a long while, but I've just started watching Atlanta, and I like it. And there's no denying, that's not the controversial thing, and there's no denying they use the N-word a lot. Now, my previous position was that we need to at least have the end in sight of no one being given the right to use certain words over the rights of other people based solely on the colour of that person's skin. And I stand by that, and I think many people find themselves of this belief at the current moment. However, and this is the inflammatory part, watching Atlanta has made me realise that there's more to the word than just one word. The N-word, when used by certain people, and this isn't necessarily determined by that person's race or skin complexion, but instead where they were raised, or how they were raised, I suppose. The N-word, when used by certain people, is part of a different language. It's part of a bigger lexicon. There's a whole language with unique subtext, nuance, inflections, and the sort. And the problem arises because, on paper, there would appear to be no difference whatsoever between the average white person's daily speech and the very specific group of people who are predominantly black that speak in the way that I'm referring to. This is not to say that all people who are black should be automatically allowed to speak this way, nor should no white person ever speak in that way, or anyone put in a certain category based solely on the colour of their skin. Only if someone has learned and understands the language and all its nuances should they even desire to speak it. And this may be difficult to imagine when the language would never seem... This may be difficult to imagine when the language would never seem to have been acknowledged, let alone taught anywhere. But the solution to me seems simple. Open dialogue should be conducted in the normal manner between people who do and don't speak in that way. It is a unique situation where the languages are so similar, there would be absolutely minimal loss of understanding between the two languages, and as the relationship grows, better aspects of both languages will be adopted by the other and incorporated, with the hope that eventually their languages will evolve into a uniform language, something we have desired for centuries across all languages. Although now I'm thinking about it, I think there's a tendency for people to just revert to... Obviously, if you were speaking to a German person, you wouldn't start mixing... you wouldn't start speaking Denglish, or it's called, it's part German, part Deutsch, part English. You'd probably just either speak German or English, whichever one you both understood. And most people who speak with the particular dialect that I'm talking about, with the use of the M word in a kind of endearing sense for certain people that you believe have earned the right to say it, I think most people were likely to just take up one language over the other and not try and... Anyway. So maybe I'm obviously being an idiot when I said it was a simple solution, because I'm an idiot. The ultimate goal is a universal language, but a few clarifies. There are some black people who I presume are using the N-word under the impression that they are entitled to purely because of the pigment in their skin, and I personally don't believe they should. Not that I should ever be the authority on this, but I think many people who have grown up speaking this language will be able to recognise these people far better than I ever could. Also, the problem of people wanting to say the N-word is a problem. To me, it's like instead of learning German, you just learn the swear words, which is funny for a short period of time, and rightly so, but if you just start using them to excess, without any wit, and especially in the presence of fluent German speakers, it's a bit crass. In fact, a more relatable example might be the typically Australian endearing use of the word cunt. The actual use would be, alright, cunt, something like that. And maybe some people would consider that racist, but I'm actually trying to prove a point here. Now, obviously, this is funny to use, and is far more widely incorporated into our language, especially British English, than the M-word. And yet, if I were to meet an Australian person, I think it would be uncouth of me to use that word, especially without the proper inflection, if the person hadn't yet learned more of my nature, and just how much of an understanding of the use of that word that I had. Now, one of the worst ways this could be interpreted would be he's saying black people speak another language, and I don't know how. It almost sounded like I was trying to do some kind of offensive accent there, but I was just trying to make up an accent of a random person, and I don't know how to make it any clearer that I'm not saying that. I'm not sure I could ever reach someone who listens to this and manages to make the inference from my words that I'm saying black people speak one way and white people speak another way. I think Eminem has the right to say the M-word, possibly, because, I don't know, well, I guess it was his film, but in 8 Mile, he seemed to be using it, and I'm guessing that's because he grew up in Detroit, and how else was he supposed to learn to speak? I mean, all the people he was speaking with spoke that way, so you're not going to learn to speak like a British monarch, are you? And I don't even think there's anything better about speaking that way. So anywho, I'll say it again. Some people have grown up speaking a certain way in which the N-word is a natural part of the vocabulary, whilst this very same word has an entirely different meaning if used in another way by people who haven't grown up using it in that certain way. So that's the stance. That is the stance. People always want to know, what religion do you believe in? And I always feel uncomfortable whenever it comes up. It's awkward for me, because most people don't really consider it a religion, but I'm an astrologist. The thing people don't realise, though, is that I'm not one of those crazy fundamentalist astrologists, you know. I'm more of a kind of reformed kind. I only base my life decisions on bullshit to do with the alignment of the stars on weekends, or when Mercury's in retrograde, of course, or during the summer solstice, or the winter solstice. Okay, all of the solstices. That was a little follow-on to a joke I made in a text to my mate Rob's. Oh, Rob's, what text that was I sent. Fucking hilarious. Anyway. Perhaps another moral of my story is that we can provide therapy for ourselves sometimes. If you notice that you don't feel as good as you used to, and that you're not quite who you used to be, then make a list of all the things you used to do that you don't do now, and all the things that you do now that you didn't used to, even the most trivial thing. And then ask yourself, could I afford to try changing this for a little while, and experiment? Find what it is that has changed you from the last you to the present you, and try to change it back. Well, that sounds like a load of fucking bullshit. One, because I never did that, and two, you'll find out in a few notes that I'm starting to change my opinion about what actually was that changed me. Anyway, one other slim possibility for what could have changed recently and affected me in this way is that I ate fruit and fibre cereal last night and this morning. But it's not as if I hadn't eaten breakfast for 2 years, but I had hardly eaten any cereal. Not none, but not much. And perhaps either the iron or the fibre had been missing from my diet. And actually, after looking at I looked at the kind of what's the nutrition data on the side of the box. I don't know. And there's actually, they actually put quite a lot of thing in. I haven't been taking vitamins, but I had been trying a load of it. I was taking vitamin D and calcium and cod liver oil and stuff like that when I was at uni, and I was still feeling this way, so I didn't think it was vitamins, but maybe I wasn't taking any iron for certain, so that's why I'm kind of narrowing it down to iron. And there's also riboflavin. I think I've heard that mentioned relevant to depression or something, so maybe it was just a vitamin deficiency. But then I had been eating cereal. It doesn't seem to tie in as accurately with when I started feeling this way. Not that I actually know when I started feeling this way, but then again, neither did the YouTube thing. I think I probably started watching everything at 2 times speed around a year and a half ago, and I think I really started feeling this way around I don't know, a year and 3/4 maybe. So yeah, my most recent theory is that maybe I just am bipolar. I mean, it would make a lot of sense seeing as mum is, well, child-parent confidentiality, I don't know. But so long as I feel this way, I will admit right now I don't actually feel as good as I did the instant I started feeling this way yesterday. When I had that realisation, if I just watched it was like an instant switch when I just started watching a YouTube video at normal speed. I was like, oh fuck, this feels all of a sudden better. And I think it might have been just the kind of amplified by the fact that it was the first time it's happening. But I feel pretty good now. I still want to try poker. I still want to do airsoft. I still want to move to London, get a flat, start going out, meeting people, get a job. Doesn't really matter what the job is, so long as I just carry on feeling this way, as long as it doesn't hinder my ability to feel this way. But yeah, if it's bipolar, then I guess I'd prefer it to be, my favourite would be if it was just the YouTube thing, because then that's just something I don't ever have to think about again. I wouldn't mind if it's I wouldn't mind so much if it's just getting the right vitamins and iron and all that in my diet, because if one bowl of fruit and fibre is enough to sort it out, then I'll fucking just have a bowl of fruit and fibre every morning, which is fine. I did it today, and actually I think that, I don't know, but that's probably, I felt a little bit better, but then I think that's probably just placebo, because you know. But yeah, if it's bipolar, then I guess I'll just have to wait. If my cycle is every 2 years, then I guess in 2 years I'll be back feeling bad again, and I'll just have to look back at all this and realise I've probably got bipolar disorder, and then in which case. But now maybe I'm going to make myself feel that way by having placebo about that. It's tough to know. I guess I could get some kind of tests done somehow, but I never seemed to display any real bipolar characteristics when I was younger, I don't think. But we'll see. If it does, if in 2 years, if I end, or even if it's just in a week or something, I end up feeling bad again, I'll just have to consider bipolar as an option, maybe look at drugs, but I didn't have to do any drug type thing. So I'd rather it was either the iron or whatever, or YouTube videos at normal speed. But for now, we're good. Why? Oh yeah, this was again. I managed to get involved in the N-word type situation. If it's not really, but I realised there was probably some crossover between how it. So basically, I watched Dave Chappelle on a chat show. I can't remember which chat show it was. It did a guest appearance on a chat show, obviously, and he was really funny. He was really funny. So I wanted to watch it, and then watch one of his actual stand-ups. So I tried to watch one of his stand-up routines, and I watched for a while, and then I realised I can't really relate to much of this because it's kind of saying, notice how some black people do this, but real black people do this, and all that. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's kind of funny. And then I skipped ahead after a while because it seems to be doing the same thing, and maybe I was just being a little bit what's the word? I don't know. Well, maybe I was just kind of not really looking hard enough, but it seemed like the whole routine was just that from start to finish, and I thought it got a bit boring. And I found this before when I tried to watch. A lot of famous comedians have said that Eddie Murphy Delirious was the greatest stand-up routine ever, and I tried watching that. Well, I actually did watch it all the way through, and there were bits that were very funny, of course, but it seemed to me to have the same thing, where it was almost an entire, well, probably around 3/4 of the act was, here, notice how some black people do this, other black people do this, and then white people do this. Anyway, I'll just read the thing that I wrote yesterday. Why comedians doing jokes about when a black person is in this situation, he does this, but a white person in the same situation will do something completely different. Isn't the same problem as the whole N-word situation? Why that isn't the same problem as the N-word situation? The Simpsons made the joke of the joke almost 20 years ago. You know, the one where Homer's watching TV and he's like, black people drive like this, and then he goes do 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 do. I'm doing the hand gesture, it doesn't help. And then white people drive like this. Do 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 do. It's funny. It's pretty funny. Anyway, Simpsons made the joke almost 20 years ago. It works away from the idea that we all want that we all should want. Hang on. That we all should want to achieve. What the fuck? It works away from the idea that we all should want to achieve. What we should all want to achieve. Which is character independent of race. Although maybe there is utility in pointing out the absurd ways in which we are different, and why it's odd that we are different in the first place, in order for us to realise that we shouldn't think of each other as different, then maybe there is utility in that. But I don't know, it's seems odd. And also, not all black comedians do it. I mean, Kevin Hart doesn't seem to do it. I'm not actually a massive fan of Kevin Hart, but Richard Pryor wasn't. I think maybe Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy were comedians in a time when it was far hard. It would have been odd for them not to talk about that particular problem, because it was a problem that was so prominent in society that it would have just been like, why are you talking about anything else? But Richard Pryor actually seemed to do it less so, in my opinion. Steve Harvey, this shocked me because I'd never really heard of Steve Harvey before the Miss Universe pageant debacle thing, but I actually ended up, I can't remember how, but YouTube suggested one of his stand-up routines, and I found him really funny, and he didn't seem to be doing it at all, so I was surprised that maybe that's why he wasn't successful, I don't know. Maybe if you're a black comedian and you don't take that route, then maybe your society is set to kind of be prejudiced against you, which seems silly to me. I feel like that would be pretty unfair if you kind of put in a corner about what you can joke about. Anyway, there's another thing about the N-word. With the whole N-word situation, it's almost like we're fighting two different battles. On one hand, we're trying to remove the venom of the N-word with the N-word with a hard R, so that it can't be used as a weapon to hurt people's feelings, which is obviously a good thing. We need to be in a place where words shouldn't be able to hurt people like that. Shouldn't be able to use words as weapons. And then on the other hand, the colloquial use of the N-word is part of culture. Or maybe we do need words as weapons. Obviously not that one, not one that divides people by race, but certain words like, well, it's not really the word though, is it? Certain words like, or certain perceptions of you need to make you realise that what you're doing isn't conducive to society. So paedophiles, probably not good people. So the word paedophile, if we remove all the venom of that word, I think we need to make it so that, I don't know, it needs to be a case where the word, if it just gets heard anywhere, it's not offensive. But if someone is genuinely being accused of being that person, then yeah, they need to feel bad. Well, only if they actually are. Paedophiles need to feel bad for being paedophiles, is what I'm getting at. And black people shouldn't be able to feel bad about the colour of their skin, nor should white people, nor should any person. We need to reach a society where everyone is equal. Well, everyone is equal provided they behave in certain ways, and the way someone behaves is completely detached from the colour of their skin, so it should have no bearing about what you know about that person. There we go, that's what I think, anyway. So that it can't be used as a weapon to hurt people's feelings, and then on the other hand, the colloquial use of the N-word is part of culture, so it's easy to see how people could be confused about which word is undergoing which stage of its evolution. Bloody hell, this is a long one. I don't think we ever sent this one with my emails. Oh no, what am I going to do? Yeah, so actually I covered all the things I was going to talk about extra, I think, the bipolar possibilities. But yeah, I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling good. It feels good to feel good. It feels good to feel anything. I cannot stress enough how, I mean, well, I feel sorry for past me, obviously, but how sorry I feel for anyone who feels that the inability to feel anything is, fuck man, it's bad, but it's really bad. But anyone who only feels the bad stuff, I mean, it's got to be worse, hasn't it? I'm guessing. I mean, I guess I could feel something about, like, effort was still a thing. Everything felt like I was still making an effort, but just for absolutely no reward, and it really grinds you down. It's like self-perpetuating in that sense. But yeah, if it's bipolar, then I guess at least I'll have some kind of inkling about what I can do about it. But it didn't really seem like bipolar when I was experiencing it, because I always thought of bipolar as being up and down and up and down, rather than just up for 20 or so years. Then not even it didn't feel like down. Obviously it was down, but it was more of a, I would have thought down would be like, this is so something. Oh my god, I'm so upset. But it was more of just the inability to experience life. It really was just an inability to engage with absolutely anything that's happening in the world in any meaningful way. So yeah, there we go. Right, bye now.